These are all the commanders who appeared in this historical event, along with the time, date, and location of their involvement. Lieutenant General Simon Bolivar Buckner, Jr., United States Army, commanding U.S. 10th Army, Okinawa, Japan, April 1, 1945. Major General Roy Geiger, United States Marine Corps, 3 Amphibious Corps, Okinawa, April 1, 1945. Lieutenant General Mitsuru Shijima, Imperial Japanese Army, commanding Japanese 32nd Army, Okinawa, Japan, April 1, 1945. General Isamu Cho, Imperial Japanese Army, Staff Officer coordinating Japanese frontline assaults, Okinawa, Japan, April 1945. Time, 5:30 hours. Date, April 1, 1945. Location, Okinawa, Japan, Southern Ridge Lines near Shuri Castle. Weather, overcast morning, intermittent rain. Humidity 82%. Units involved: U.S. 10th Army, 3 Amphibious Corps, Japanese 32nd Army, Imperial Japanese Army Frontline Infantry. The first light of April 1, 1945 broke over the jagged ridge lines of Okinawa, and the American forward observers could already hear the distant rumble of Japanese movement. Soldiers in foxholes whispered among themselves, gripping their M1 Garins tightly, eyes scanning the tree-line where shadows flickered. "They're coming," Private O'Malley muttered at 5:42 hours, the damp wind carrying the faint shouts of Japanese troops preparing for their infamous Banzai charge. Sergeant Thompson reassured his squad, adjusting his helmet. "Keep calm, men. Fire discipline will win this." The tension was palpable, every heartbeat syncing with the drumming of distant artillery. The ridge was alive with anticipation and fear. By 6:05 hours, Japanese infantry emerged from hidden gullies, their battle cries echoing across the southern plains near Shuri. The Marines, stationed along strategic defensive lines, opened fire with precise bursts, the bars cutting swaths through the advancing formations. "Steady. Don't waste ammo." Lieutenant Harris commanded from a craggy rock outcrop, his voice sharp despite the chaos. The first wave faltered instantly under disciplined American fire, leaving many Japanese soldiers pinned in the mud and grass. Private Lee, suppressing a trembling cough, whispered his buddy, "I didn't think we'd see this many at once." Artillery observers radio coordinates back to batteries, ensuring follow-up shells would hit key approach routes. At 6:25 hours, Lieutenant General Buckner moved along the secondary defensive lines, speaking directly with company commanders over crackle of field radios. "We need to hold until their momentum collapses," he ordered, glancing at the rising smoke and flashing muzzle fire. Major General Geiger, nearby, nodded and coordinated a counter-barrage, integrating naval gunfire from offshore vessels with ground artillery. "Keep your heads down and trust your weapons," he reminded the men. Japanese officers, including General Cho, pushed their remaining infantry forward, attempting to breach the American line. But a combination of overlapping field of fire and prepared positions caused the enemy to fragment and retreat into exposed ground. By 6:50 hours, the ridge was littered with fallen soldiers from both sides, but the U.S. defensive lines held firm. Private O'Malley adjusted his sights and took careful aim, thinking of the letters he'd written home just weeks earlier. "I hope this ends soon," he muttered, the rain stinging his face. Artillery strikes followed his unit's observations, each shell sending tremors through the earth, cutting down attacking squads before they could regroup. Sergeant Thompson clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Good work, O'Malley. Keep it steady. Every bullet counts." The Marines' meticulous coordination prevented what might have been a catastrophic breakthrough. At 7:15 hours, Japanese reinforcements attempted a flanking maneuver along the western hill. Lieutenant Harris spotted them and quickly relayed positions to nearby machine gun crews. "Concentrate fire on that ridge. Do not let them cross," he barked. The machine gunners responded instantly, sweeping the slope with synchronized fire. Private Lee ducked behind sandbags, his ears ringing from the explosions, feeling both terror and adrenaline. The Japanese advance slowed dramatically, men breaking off into smaller groups and seeking cover, while U.S. troops maintained calm, using hand signals to just fire and preserve their defensive advantage. By 7:40 hours, the Japanese infantry attempted a second wave, shouting the same iconic Banzai cry. Lieutenant General Buckner observed from a slightly elevated position, binoculars raised, noting that despite sheer numbers, the charge lacked coordination and was immediately met with lethal fire. "Their bravery is remarkable," he muttered, "but bravery cannot overcome preparation and firepower." Major General Geiger relayed additional artillery coordinates to shore batteries, hammering the exposed flanks. Soldiers in trenches, though exhausted, felt a grim satisfaction as each assault faltered under disciplined American fire, reinforcing the psychological advantage the defensive positions provided. Around 8:05 hours, scattered Japanese units tried to regroup under covering terrain, but U.S. sharpshooters took strategic positions, targeting officers attempting to organize resistance. Private O'Malley noted, "They're aiming to keep their leaders alive." Sergeant Thompson replied quietly, "Keep your focus on your sector. Officers are the key, yes, but we have our orders." Communication lines were stretched, radios hissing under constant interference, but coordination among American squads remained seamless. The weather, a humid drizzle, added another layer of difficulty, muddying paths and hampering the enemy's mobility while Americans held high ground. By 8:30 hours, the ridge lines of southern Okinawa were dominated by American fire. Japanese forces suffered heavy casualties, morale waned, and the once cohesive charge dissolved into disorganized retreats. Lieutenant Harris, reporting via field radio, confirmed that no sector had been breached. Soldiers whispered prayers, some exhausted, some invigorated by the victory, but all acutely aware of how close danger had come. The Banzai charge, famed for its ferocity, had failed to overcome methodical preparation, disciplined fire, and leadership in the field. At 8:55 hours, Major General Geiger walked among the front-line trenches, nodding at weary Marines. "Your discipline saved lives today," he said. Soldiers exchanged quiet smiles, catching glimpses of each other's relief amidst the devastation around them. Privately glanced toward the eastern slope, remembering the young Japanese soldiers who had charged with courage, now fallen. The horrors of battle weighed on him, but the tactical lesson was clear. Firepower and preparation could overcome even the most fanatical assault. A subtle thought crossed his mind. We should tell everyone how precise coordination won this day, reinforcing the story's importance. By 9:20 hours, the first phase of the battle ended. Survivors collected ammunition, reinforced weak positions, and prepared for any subsequent assaults. Lieutenant General Buckner and Major General Geiger convened briefly, reviewing battlefield reports and planning countermeasures for potential nighttime infiltration. Across the ridge, the once mighty Banzai waves were broken, casualties mounting in quiet confusion. The psychological impact of holding firm, coupled with superior weaponry and coordination, underscored why these charges failed. Soldiers took a brief moment to rest, yet all knew the war was far from over, and each action here would ripple across Okinawa's campaign. The sun climbed higher over southern Okinawa by 10 o'clock hours on April 1st, 1945, casting a harsh light across the ridge lines near Shuri Castle. American Marines adjusted positions as reports of scattered Japanese resistance trickled in. Lieutenant Harris surveyed the terrain with binoculars, noting smoke rising from craters left by artillery earlier. "Keep alert. The next wave could be anywhere," he ordered, voice steady despite the tension. Private O'Malley, crouched beside a mud-stained foxhole, tightened his grip on the bar. The distant cries of wounded soldiers echoed across the hillside, mingling with birds disturbed by artillery fire. Every step forward required discipline, coordination, and unflinching resolve. By 10:25 hours, small Japanese squads attempted to flank the American left, moving cautiously through dense underbrush. Machine gunners and riflemen waited silently, weapons raised, ready to open fire with deadly accuracy. Sergeant Thompson signaled with hand gestures, directing concentrated fire on enemy pockets while ensuring no friendly casualties. "Focus, men. Fire only when they're within range," he reminded them. The rhythm of combat was relentless. Men shouted warnings, coordinated reloads, and adjusted sights. O'Malley took a brief glance at his comrades, noting exhaustion etched on faces, but also a grim determination. The ridge remained firmly in U.S. hands, a testament to preparation and firepower. At 10:50 hours, Lieutenant General Buckner coordinated with Major General Geiger over the radio to request additional naval gunfire on western approaches. Explosions rocked the ridge as shells landed in dense foliage, disrupting Japanese formations. Soldiers shielded their eyes and ears from the blasts, adrenaline coursing through veins. Naval support is on point, Geiger reported. Buckner nodded grimly, observing that despite repeated attempts, Japanese forces lacked cohesion to mount a successful assault. Privately whispered his buddy, "If anyone asks, this is why coordination matters," reflecting on precision that allowed smaller U.S. units to withstand numerically superior enemy forces. By 11:15 hours, artillery observers reported enemy movements in the southern valley. Lieutenant Harris relayed the coordinates to suppressive fire teams, ensuring Japanese squads could not regroup. The Marines maintained discipline, taking controlled shots while conserving ammunition. Sergeant Thompson, scanning the horizon, noticed enemy officers attempting to reorganize their men. He radioed for sniper teams to monitor and disrupt leadership. Private O'Malley, heart racing, ducked as tracer rounds traced paths across the hillside. "Stay focused," Thompson reminded him. "Every disciplined shot matters." Across the ridge, Japanese forces faltered further, confusion spreading as American firepower and command coordination dominated the battlefield. Around 11:40 hours, scattered Japanese soldiers attempted a brief, desperate charge near a hilltop ravine. Machine gun crews unleashed precise bursts, mowing down small formations before they reached the lines. Lieutenant Harris shouted commands to reposition, a few riflemen to reinforce weaker sectors. Private Lee's M1 Garand jammed briefly, but Sergeant Thompson was immediately beside him, clearing it efficiently. "Remember your drills, Lee," he said. The soldiers' cohesion, training, and calm under fire contrasted sharply with the fragmented assaults they faced. This combination of preparation and firepower decisively prevented breaches, leaving Japanese troops disoriented and their morale plummeting. By 12:05 hours, rain began to fall lightly, turning the already muddy slopes near Shuri Castle into treacherous footing. American troops adjusted, finding firmer positions and coordinating overlapping fields of fire. Lieutenant General Buckner walked along forward trenches, observing the effectiveness of the defensive lines, offering words of encouragement. "Hold steady," he told the men. "Our preparation is winning this fight." Private O'Malley, wiping sweat and rain from his brow, glanced at the horizon where smoke mingled with clouds. The subtle lesson of coordination, discipline, and firepower was evident to all. No matter how fanatically enemies charge, disciplined defense would hold. At 12:30 hours, Japanese units attempted a feint to lure American forces away from the ridge's center. Marines anticipated the tactic, adjusting their fire and maintaining positions. Sergeant Thompson barked orders to ensure sectors remained defended. Lieutenant Harris coordinated with artillery to keep suppressive fire on likely flanking paths. The sound of shells and small arms filled the air, punctuated by the distant cries of soldiers. Private Lee, breathing heavily, noticed the enemy's hesitation and the gaps forming in their ranks. "Stay calm," Thompson reminded him. "Don't let them see fear." Each moment of discipline reinforced the American line's dominance. By 12:55 hours, pockets of Japanese soldiers were retreating under intense fire. Lieutenant General Buckner conferred with Major General Geiger, noting the enemy's dwindling numbers and lack of coordination. The ridge remained firmly in American hands, with every defensive position intact. Marines checked ammunition, treated minor injuries, and repositioned themselves for potential night assaults. Private O'Malley whispered, "This is how battles are won. Firepower and patience." Sergeant Thompson smiled briefly, acknowledging the truth in the statement. The intensity of the morning's engagements highlighted the deadly efficiency of disciplined preparation against repeated fanatical charges. Around 13:20 hours, the Marines took a brief moment to rest, refill ammunition, and adjust defensive obstacles along the ridge. Lieutenant Harris briefed small squads on likely enemy infiltration points for the coming hours. Private Lee, catching his breath, glanced over the devastated terrain below, noting the human cost of failed Banzai charges. "If anyone doubts why we train like this, they should look out there," he muttered. Sergeant Thompson nodded, surveying the soldiers' focus and resolve. The subtle mention of perseverance and firepower reinforced to all present a critical lesson. Preparation and discipline often outweighed sheer courage. By 1345 hours, the morning's Banzai attacks had ceased. Marines and artillery observers documented battlefield positions, reported casualties, and adjusted fire plans for the afternoon. Lieutenant General Buckner addressed the men, his voice carrying over the ridge. "Your discipline saved countless lives today. Remember this for the coming days." Amid the exhaustion, soldiers whispered among themselves, reflecting on the effectiveness of their training and coordination. Private O'Malley glanced skyward, noting the sun breaking through clouds, and muttered, "This is why I'll tell others to like and subscribe to our stories. It shows what preparation and firepower really mean." By 1410 hours on April 1st, 1945, the ridge near Shuri Castle remained under American control, though the soldiers' fatigue was palpable. Lieutenant Harris moved along the lines, checking positions and speaking quietly to small squads. "Keep your eyes sharp. Nightfall changes the battlefield," he warned. The distant hills to the west showed faint signs of movement, likely scouts or regrouping Japanese soldiers. Private Lee observed the shattered terrain, noting craters, torn foliage, and abandoned enemy weapons. The soldiers exchanged brief reassurances, understanding that survival depended on vigilance, coordination, and discipline. The harsh sun breaking through intermittent clouds illuminated both destruction and the endurance of trained men. By 1435 hours, small Japanese teams attempted to probe American positions, moving cautiously through muddy trails carved by prior artillery. Machine gunners and riflemen reacted swiftly, firing controlled bursts to suppress movement. Sergeant Thompson coordinated the fire, pointing out weak spots in the enemy's approach. Lieutenant Harris radioed artillery observers to monitor likely infiltration paths. Private O'Malley whispered to Lee, "Every step they take costs them more than us." The psychological toll on Japanese soldiers was evident. They hesitated under disciplined American fire. Meanwhile, U.S. troops reinforced positions and recalibrated sights, knowing that minor lapses could be fatal on the Okinawa ridges. At 1500 hours, rain intensified slightly, turning paths into slick mud, slowing movement for both sides. Lieutenant Harris took a moment to consult maps, noting likely enemy fallback routes and planning potential counterbarrages. "Anticipate, don't react," he instructed. Privately adjusted his helmet and rifle strap, noting wet gear and mud-caking boots. Sergeant Thompson supervised small squads, ensuring overlapping fields of fire were maintained despite the worsening conditions. The combined effects of weather, terrain, and prior engagements favored the disciplined defenders. Observing Japanese troops' hesitation, Harris reflected on how preparation, coordination, and situational awareness often outweighed numerical strength in prolonged engagements. By 1525 hours, artillery observers reported minor enemy concentrations near a southern ravine. Lieutenant General Buckner authorized suppressive strikes to prevent regrouping. Explosions echoed across the hillside, and the Marines ducked instinctively, maintaining focus. Private O'Malley observed debris flying near a distant tree line, a grim reminder of ordnance's destructive power. Sergeant Thompson reminded his men to remain calm, reload efficiently, and observe the battlefield's changing patterns. Lieutenant Harris noted the coordination between ground observation and artillery. The precision was crucial to neutralize enemy formations before they could threaten the ridge. Discipline and vigilance ensured no breaches occurred during this tense afternoon phase. By 1550 hours, Japanese units retreated further, leaving behind casualties and abandoned weaponry. Marines checked sectors, treated minor injuries, and shared brief words of encouragement. Private Lee surveyed the field, reflecting on the human cost of repeated Banzai charges and frontal assaults. Lieutenant Harris spoke quietly to his squad, emphasizing lessons learned. Every position, every shot, every command matters. History will judge these moments. Sergeant Thompson added, "Adaptation under pressure is survival." The soldiers understood that their resilience and coordination had decisively shaped this phase of the battle, demonstrating how discipline, firepower, and strategy intertwined in high-intensity combat. Around 1615 hours, Observation posts reported distant smoke from possible Japanese artillery positions further south. Lieutenant Harris relayed the information for future engagement planning. Noting the time and visibility conditions, Private O'Malley helped reposition sandbags to reinforce weak spots while he monitored potential infiltration points. Sergeant Thompson kept constant communication between riflemen and machine gun nests, ensuring no blind spots existed. The ridge's natural terrain and pre-planned defenses allowed for efficient suppression of remaining threats. Harris reflected silently. Even the smallest unit action, repeated consistently, could prevent disaster and shape battlefield outcomes, highlighting leadership preparation and training in determining success. By 1640 hours, U.S. forces began methodically clearing adjacent forested paths for observation and logistical resupply. Lieutenant General Buckner observed the operation, noting efficient troop movements and minimal exposure. Private Lee carefully followed instructions, mindful of trip hazards and uneven ground, while Thompson coordinated overlapping fields of fire for cover. Harris monitored potential enemy observation points, noting shadows cast by low-angle sun. The soldiers' collective vigilance ensured they could respond to sudden attacks despite exhaustion. Each man recognized that preparation, discipline, and interlocking defensive measures were the invisible threads that prevented chaos from overwhelming their positions during extended combat. At 1705 hours, reports indicated small Japanese units attempting reconnaissance along western slopes. Lieutenant Harris ordered minimal engagement to avoid drawing attention while maintaining observation. Private O'Malley whispered, "They'll learn quickly this ridge isn't easy," noting enemy hesitation. Sergeant Thompson supervised the sniper team's covert overwatch, ensuring any sudden movement would be contained. Harris reflected on tactical patience. Holding fire when unnecessary preserved strength, while still applying psychological pressure. The ridge remained a testament to disciplined defense and coordinated firepower. Even small adjustments in timing, positioning, and observation influenced the survival and effectiveness of every soldier engaged in prolonged Okinawa fight. By 1730 hours, the last light of day created long shadows across Shuri castles surrounding ridges. Marines rotated positions, ensuring all sectors were manned and that casualties were accounted for. Lieutenant Harris walked among his men, offering brief encouragement. Privately reflected on the day's chaos and the coordination required to survive repeated assaults. Sergeant Thompson reminded everyone of standard operating procedures for the night, emphasizing vigilance. Observing the terrain, Harris noted that every trench, crater, and cleared path contributed to a network of effective defense. The discipline and professionalism displayed reinforced a critical lesson. Preparation, awareness, and teamwork were as lethal as firepower itself. By 1755 hours, Japanese resistance had largely ceased in the immediate sector. Lieutenant General Buckner and Major General Geiger assessed battlefield reports, noting the efficiency and endurance of the American units. Private O'Malley, exhausted but alert, glanced at the setting sun over Okinawa, reflecting on how individual actions combined to achieve collective survival. Lieutenant Harris considered the broader tactical picture, understanding that coordination across squads, artillery, and observation was decisive. Sergeant Thompson confirmed readiness for night defense. Soldiers exchanged brief words of reflection, acknowledging the human and tactical costs of the day. Each understood the intertwined roles of courage, preparation, and strategy in determining who survived. As night approached at 1820 hours, the ridge stood secure, the battlefield quiet save for distant echoes of retreating enemy units. Lieutenant Harris gathered small squads to review the day's engagements, emphasizing what had been learned. Private Lee surveyed the terrain, noting craters, destroyed weaponry, and abandoned positions, silent testimonies of combat's intensity. Sergeant Thompson reminded soldiers of the importance of preparation for night operations. Observing the exhausted but disciplined men, Lieutenant General Buckner reflected, the combination of training, leadership, and disciplined execution had proven decisive. The events of the day highlighted the enduring lessons of World War II combat. Coordinated firepower, leadership, and soldier resilience shaped history and survival alike.